Welcome to the Resilient Teacher Podcast, Jessica. It's great to have you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so I gave a great introduction to who you are and what you do, but can you give us something from the heart? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what led you to the work that you're doing now.
I think the easiest way to explain it is that I'm really trying to help teachers stay in education. That's
Yes, me
basically
too.
it. All of the work, all of the work that we're doing and that we do with my company, our end game is just to keep more good teachers and administrators in schools because it's not getting easier, it's getting harder. And it keeps me up at night. I worry about it, if not for my own kids, who I'm just hoping will get through school, having teachers staffing every class for their kids. I don't think this is trending well. So just trying to keep good people in schools.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I love the way that you said that too, because while obviously my podcast is here to support those teachers and help them to stay in the profession long term. I always say if it's not if that's not your road, that's perfectly okay. But at the end of the day, I think that's what we all want. I think we want teachers who love and have that passion to maintain that passion long term. So one of the things that your company does really great with is let me rewind a little bit. One of the things that we were talking about before we kind of got started was some of the really interesting trends and themes that you guys are seeing from the educational perspective. What are some of the things that you're seeing right now that are really impacting teachers?
Such a good question. I'll say too, we work with teachers worldwide. So when I say themes, it really is, I'm hearing these themes globally. It's not one school, it's not one type of school. We work in public, private, independent, charter, international.
All the things.
So yeah, we work in all the things, and we're just hearing the same themes over and over. So first of all, it feels like the workload has increased for teachers, and it has. There's more
Yeah.
for teachers to do during the day, and they play more roles. So the teacher is, in charge of instruction, but they're also playing the role of the social worker and the nurse, the parents, I mean, you name it, the law enforcement, but whatever it is,
Right.
their role is a lot bigger, or they sense that it's a lot bigger, and they're not wrong. They have a lot more on their plates. So that's a first thing. People are really just feeling overwhelmed by the workload. The second is that students' needs appear to be getting higher and higher as time goes on. And right now we're a few years post-pandemic, so obviously we saw some of the needs change and increase during the pandemic. But now that we're in 2024, and we're kind of sifting through the rubble of the last couple of years, what we're noticing is that those trends that we thought were just because of the pandemic or because of this or that, they are enduring. So student needs are really high. Just the way students are engaging with learning is different than it was a few years ago. Their attention spans are smaller than they
Yeah.
were, and that's due to a lot of factors. Also, behavioral needs have increased, and that is one thing we're seeing. Again, this is globally, and we're talking all schools. We're talking schools where they've been able to say for the last 30, 100 years, we've never had student behavior issues. But what they're seeing is that their general population is experiencing more behavioral needs. So as the behaviors increase, teacher stress levels tend to increase as well. And
Hmm.
so they sense that they're losing this precious teaching time to have to deal with so many student behaviors, and that is really tricky. I would say another theme is that the parent needs have increased as well. Parent
Yes.
engagement is up, and it's not always easy, but the parents, they want, well, I should say, They don't want, there's a different expectation around communication, around understanding what's happening at school, around knowing how to support their own students, and then the teachers. So we're hearing this more kind of from the administrative level, but it definitely trickles down to the teachers as well. And just again, with the student needs changing, we're noticing a rise in students needing accommodations for their learning. Definitely more students being recognized or diagnosed as being neurodiverse, which means that, you know, we should be teaching them accordingly, but also recognizing that not all of the neurodiversity is being diagnosed. So whether or not you know it, you might be working with a group of students, and a number of them have learning needs or learning challenges. So teachers are just constantly adapting.
Yeah. And I like how you mentioned, at the beginning that these themes, these trends that you're seeing, these are not just like United States problems or not just
Yeah.
public school problems, but they're like globally with, all kinds of different types of school. Because I think what happens as teachers are feeling burned out is it feels like we're alone. Like
Right.
maybe it's just the public school teachers, or maybe it's just the United States public system of education, right? But I've had several people here on the podcast who have shared that they dealt with some of these issues even pre-pandemic. And so
Yep.
it's great to kind of know, one, that teachers are not alone in this feeling, and that it's not just locally or any of those types of things, that it is a consistent problem over time. And I like how you also mentioned that, some of these things were triggered from specific things, or they could be, right? Like the pandemic might have had this uptick in behavior, but also we are being given more and more to do. And it's often things that you can't put on a checklist, right? I think
Right.
that's one of the things that you would, people outside of the education field, they'll be like, well, you don't have to do that because that's not on your checklist. But as teachers, like, we want to do the best with our students. We want to make a difference. And so I just like how you brought all of that to light. Also, about the neurodiverse students. I think it's what's interesting to me, and I have no like basis on this or anything, but I have this theory that a lot of the neurodiversity was always there, but
Yep.
some of the ways that we're living
Yep.
culturally and, like in this time, it's starting to show these behaviors of neurodiversity more. But also, when teachers are strapped to the max, it's those behaviors start to really impact them. And so I've heard teachers say time and time again, and I have been one of those teachers who has struggled with burnout due to student behaviors. What do you do you have any suggestions as to how teachers can kind of manage all of that, or what do you say?
Okay, first of all, it's hard. I just empathize with all the teachers out there. It is hard. And I see that in the schools where we work, and I see that anecdotally in talking to people, and just I want you to know that I see you, because it's really challenging. Classroom management and new approaches to understanding student behaviors, communication, is probably what we get asked to do the most. And this has been really consistent. Like you said, this was pre-pandemic, this is now. And a lot of people, I'll walk into a school or I'll start talking to the teacher, and they want to know why. Why are the students like this? Why? How do we fix it? And I mean, it kind of doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter the why. This is our reality, and this is the way we're trending in the future. So how do we meet them where they're at? But it's really hard for us, I think, not to understand and be able to like compartmentalize in our brains the meaning behind it, why it's happening. So I just encourage you, if you're kind of stuck there, because as a parent, sometimes I'm stuck there too, just to be thinking, if this is my new normal, how am I going to adapt to it? So I used to be a professor, and I taught classroom management for 10 years. And so I know all the different programs and approaches and theories. And we've kind of developed our own based on the best parts of all of them. And so when my team engages with a new school, it's really personalized. I want to know, what are you seeing? Like, what kind of behaviors are you seeing at your school? What are you already doing? What are the expectations that are in place? And then we work from there, because every single school has a different way of acknowledging, managing, and some are still disciplining behaviors. And so we really just try and take an approach with our partners that you need something that's really personalized to your school and sometimes to your classroom, because we can give a big workshop, we can talk about general things, but at the end of the day, you go back to your class and teachers are really wanting personalized help with their student population. And so it's really nice when we work with a school to be able to work long term and go in and work as coaches with the teachers, get to see the students in front of them, see what the transitions are like, see what the most difficult times of day are like, and really help the teachers come up with a plan that's going to work for their students. But I would say in general, our approach to student behaviors right now is, like I said, it's really a new way of thinking about behavior is communication. So what is the student trying to tell me with his or her inability to sit in the chair right now? Or, from minor things like can't sit still to major things like elopement and students running, thinking about the why behind that, because when we understand what the student needs, we can understand why we're seeing what we're seeing. And so we like to think about it in terms of understanding the students, really understanding their brains. A lot of what we talk about goes back to the brain science. We have 2 neuroscientists on our team who help us understand student brains and our own, because the way we show up as educators absolutely matters as well. And the way we engage with the behaviors when we see them can make all the difference. And also, our approach is really restorative. It's really about preserving dignity of each individual student, of knowing that these students who, sometimes it feels like this child is just out to get me. Well, you know what? It's not personal. It's not personal. It could feel personal because we're with them all day long. We really are like second parents in a lot of ways, like first parents to some students. But really, when the communication and the behavior is being presented, it's not about us, it's about their own needs. And so those are the general ways we're trying to help and support teachers with student behavior right now.
You said that about not taking it personal. It is so hard not to take it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like, because
Oh yeah.
it's like when I try this, I try so hard at this, and the kid's still acting this way or still behaving in this manner. And so it's hard not to take it personally. But it's so important to kind of separate those two, because what I often see with teachers and handling behavior too is a major component of the relationship between the student and the teacher, is that the teacher is often taking that personal when they really shouldn't be, and then that's difficult to do. The other thing that you mentioned, and I'm a huge proponent of it because I taught special education for 13 years, and I'm big on individualization, not only for students but for teachers too, is that part of the system that you guys are doing is not only brain science backed, but giving teachers that autonomy. Because
Right.
what we've noticed as well, in the burnout cycle, is that often teachers are doing things that are not unique to them or do not feel like they jive with it, right? And so that
Yeah.
autonomy is so important for teachers, and to use strategies that work best for them and what makes them feel good. What are some of the ways that you guys kind of dig down into what types of strategies might work for specific teachers?
We like to get to know the teachers. In the same way our teachers, so much depends on knowing the students. We like to get to know our teachers. The schools we engage with, we're pretty we're pretty picky now about engaging with schools who aren't looking to check boxes and say, oh, we did this training. Oh, we can, move on to the next thing. But really schools who are thinking, how can we make this a really joyful and sustainable work environment for our teachers? And that looks very personal, like you said. So I really think the future PD is personalized. Now it's tricky because
Mhm.
it's not necessarily cheaper. It's a lot cheaper than recruiting and retraining teachers, but it can be a significant investment for schools. But it means so much, and we know one of the main things people want and teachers want is agency. They want to be heard, they want to be understood. And if you're saying, go attend this training because we think it's good for you, that can be tricky. It can be tricky to get buy-in. So the first thing we like to do whenever we engage with a new school is we survey everyone and ask some general questions. And then when we're going to be working individually with teachers, we start working individually right away. Even if it's not in person, we're talking on Zoom. We're having just short little conversations. Tell me what's going well. Tell me what's challenging. And we build up the relationships so that we can start digging deeper and really helping whomever it is in the classroom that they're working in. And we hear it all the time, especially from veteran teachers who say, you know what, I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot. And I'm being challenged in new ways. And it's just so nice to have somebody to grow with and to know I'm supported rather than I have to go do this on my own. I have to figure it out on my own.
Yeah, or having to try to like check off these boxes and say, I did meet with such and such. Actually, having that relationship with somebody that can support you is huge for just not feeling alone, right? One of the things I've noticed too is teachers, when we deal with these behaviors, our nervous system can become
Oh
dysregulated.
yeah.
And
Yep.
and it's so hard because we have to be on like in person, like that. We can't just, pause and hope that our class does well. We have to keep going, and we have to just keep going with the lesson, the day, handling, putting out this fire, putting out that fire. And one of the things that I have told teachers to do is to make their self-care a part of their day.
Yeah.
You've talked about those little micro, what do you call it? Micro well-being practices. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that can help support teachers when they're dealing with those types of things?
Sure. This is my new favorite thing. So I think when we think about well-being and self-care, we think about it as like taking a lot of time, or I don't have time to go get a massage in the middle of the day, or we think about taking an extended vacation. And all those are truly self-care and they're nice. But especially for teachers, we have to think, well, how can you plug this in during the day? Because we know you're up and down all day. And different times of day are triggering for us, for our students. So how do we help maintain kind of that equilibrium throughout the day? And it can be tough because people say, well, I need more breaks. I need this and that. So we just try to work with whatever you have. And sometimes you literally have 30 seconds. And other times you have 10 minutes, or like maybe if you're really lucky, you've got 30 minutes and you actually have a true prep period where you can do something for yourself. But we know teachers don't always have that. So again, we try and meet you where you're at, and we try and offer a variety of strategies. They're all based on brain science that help calm and regulate the nervous system in real time. And I practice these as well as a parent because I have two high needs children, and it is, I'm constantly having to regulate myself as well uh, when I'm parenting. So I do understand. And we are so critical to this whole puzzle piece of behavior and regulation, though, because human instinct is to match energy. And so if we can engage with a student who's dysregulated with a calm and neutral demeanor, we have a much better chance of helping them co-regulate with us than if we match their energy and we're upset or we're triggered. It's really, really hard. This is like a really hard counter instinctual thing to do in the moment that it makes such a big difference. And so, yes, our idea behind micro well-being, helping people to strengthen their prefrontal cortex to help them regulate in times of stress, and just little ways to plug in throughout the day in something, like I said, it can take 20 seconds. So an example is, I worked with a teacher a few years ago who was a kindergarten teacher, and their school switched in one year from whatever designation they had been to being a level 3 EBD school. So their training had not changed, but the student body changed overnight. And so in kindergarten, there was a teacher who was really struggling. And I worked with her one-on-one. Just, it doesn't even, the thing about micro well-being and support, also, it doesn't have to be super often. We find that working with teachers 3 or 4 times a year is sometimes just enough. It gives people time to practice. It gives you time to see what you like, gives you time to formulate questions. So this doesn't have to be something where you have somebody coming into your class or trying to get on Zoom with you every week. That's like really often. So we can learn a lot in a little bit of time. But what I talked about with this teacher, because she was really close to burnout, and it was like October when we started working together. We looked at little micro ways to plug things into her day. So for her, one way to help her kind of snap out of getting dysregulated was to smell. I think her scent was lavender. However, she knew if she were to like light a lavender candle in the room, it might not have that same impact on everyone, right? So smell can be overwhelming for the senses. So she kept a little bottle of her lavender oil in her desk, and she would go just like sniff it or rub it on her wrist if she was anticipating needing that, or during transition times. And it was such a little thing, but it made a big difference to her. And then she started saying, I have these prep periods and I'm pretty busy, but if I can find a way to move my body for like even 10 minutes, I'm going to be really happy. And I have to say, this woman is a Minnesotan, because we are based in Minnesota, although we work all over the world. And Minnesota, it's really hard to commit to that sort of thing year round, because we all want to get outside and it's freezing. So she ended up bringing in, she really likes snowshoeing. So she brought in some snowshoes and she kept them next to her desk. So she made it really easy for herself to just grab them and go in the 5 minutes she had. And when I started working with her in October, and when we finished working together in April, it was completely different. She had been plugging in these little practices into her days, finding what worked and what didn't work, because not everything we suggest is possible, and everybody has a different way of feeling better. Like
Right. Individualized.
what makes me feel better might be different for you. And so we understand that. So it's kind of just giving you a whole bunch of ideas, encouraging you to test them out in teeny tiny increments, and then notice how you're feeling and notice how it impacts your day. So yeah, I've seen like a lot of big change just based on little strategies that are all, again, they're based in brain science, but they help calm the nervous system. And that's what we need during the school day.
Absolutely. And dealing with those behaviors and things like that, mental health issues from our students, we need to be able to regulate. It's funny because one of my friends, Jen, while you were talking, I was like, I got to find what she said, what she called it. You called it micro well-being. She called it joy snacking. And so, yeah, so she said throughout the day, you take 5 to 10 minutes to consciously choose something that brings you joy. It might be chatting with your teacher friend or taking a walk around the building or just listening to a feel-good song, but just those little micro or snacks of joy, if you will, kind of support us over the length of a day and really just give us that dopamine hit that often we need in order to feel like we're making a difference, right?
Yeah, and it's hard. I know it's hard because when you actually have quote unquote open time, it's never actually open time.
Open time. Yeah.
So it's helping people really understand. I tell them, you are the CEO of your class. You are the chief energy officer, and you need to be giving back to yourself to give what these students need from you.
I love that. Chief Energy Officer. That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is great. That's a quote right there from Jessica Werner right there. Jessica, thank you so much again for taking the time just to hang out and chat about kind of what you're seeing and just the behavior that teachers are dealing with. Sometimes it's just really good to hear, that you're not alone in all of that, and
Yeah.
that it is something that's occurring in multiple different establishments worldwide. So thank you so much again for talking more about that. Can you share like where teachers can learn more about what you're doing with your company, where they can learn from you, all of that good stuff?
Absolutely. And just a big thank you to all our educators out there. What you do matters. It matters so much. I know there are easier ways to make a living, but I and I'll say this, I haven't come across a more meaningful type of work. Like what you do is really special and it's really unique and it matters. So just keep that in mind in the hard days. And I know you have them, and reach out anytime. We love to hear from people. Our website is northshorelearning.org. And my email is Jess, Jess, .northshore, NORTHSHORE @gmail. And yeah, again, just thank you. It means so much to our students. And I would love to hear from you.
Yes, awesome. So we will put the links down in the show notes. That way, teachers who are listening can have a place to just easily grab those and go and check you out and email you and chat a little bit more. But thank you again, Jessica, for hanging out with us today. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Brittany.